Well, hey everybody, Forward in Recovery is back up and running. It's been a long time since an episode has posted. A lot of things have happened for me, to me, whatever you want to say, while I was bouncing forward in recovery since the last podcast. I will tell you about that in the next podcast. What I wanted to do was get up the interview and post it that I did with my good friend Julia Rugosa in March of 2024, believe it or not. So that was over 2 years ago. Wow. Anyway, it was a great interview. I wanted to get it up and post it. It's already up on YouTube. You can watch it. John P. Farrell Recovery Coach on YouTube. It's on the channel Forward in Recovery. And you can see the video there. You can listen to the audio here that I'm about to put up. It was a great interview, and I would love to have Julia come back and do another interview with us and tell us what she's been up to in the 2 years since this interview, because I'm sure, like me, a lot of things have happened. That's what happens when you're in recovery. You know, we just keep moving forward and things happen. In my next episode podcast, I'm going to tell you about what has happened with me, and so much stuff to talk about. And I want to do a little bit more research, but I watched a short clip of a meeting that President Trump had with these drug people, and they were talking about moving a whole bunch of prescription drugs to the OTC market. For those of you that don't know, that's the over-the-counter market. And I want to do a little bit more research about that, because I don't know how that's going to affect us people in recovery for the better or for the worse. There's much to be talked to about that. So that's going to be the topic I'll be talking about in the next podcast. In the meantime, here is the interview that I did 2 years ago. Coming up in March will be 2 years, with myself and my good friend Julia Rugosa. So enjoy this podcast. It's a great interview. Okay, so welcome. My name is John Farrell. Welcome to Forward in Recovery. Today, my guest is Julia Rugosa, and our topic for today, actually, this is our first interview, and it's our first video interview. This will be on audio on Spotify and Apple and all those other things, and you'll be able to watch the full video podcast on my YouTube channel, which is at John P. Farrell, CARC, so you can find it there. But today, our topic is going to be, what is your body saying to you? And I'm going to introduce to you in a minute Julia Rugosa. I'll just tell you a little bit about how we met. I came to know Julia while we were taking a Bhakti course on Zoom through a mutual friend. And we just kind of like connected on that course. It was just like eyes just met, and energy connection just happened through that. And we became friends past that course. And it was totally a long distance connection, because Julia lives in Massachusetts and I'm down here in New York. And eventually I wound up, my sister's in Massachusetts, and I wound up stopping by Cape Cod on the way on vacation. And I brought my harmonium up there, and we wound up doing a kirtan on the beach, and we just had a fabulous time. And we've been friends now, what is it, Julia? A couple of years now, right? 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. So I'm going to give it over to Julia, and Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself. So Julia Rugosa, go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be on this podcast and speaking to you all. So thank you. Thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me here.
Thank you for coming here.
I am a transformational life coach. I lead clients through holistic embodiment practices to enhance their impact, fulfillment, and emotional capacity. And I'm also a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, and a wellness director for teens, which I'll talk a little bit more about. I'm very multifaceted, and I love that. I apply solutions to enrich people's lives that help them catalyze change, welcome presence, and stay light amidst transformation. I really value self expression, and I create safe spaces to explore, practice, trust, and unleash your intuitive authenticity, your peace, and your happiness. I really enjoy this self expression part, which is what we're going to be talking about a bit more today and how that's connected to your body. If you're watching the video, you might see me actually express myself through my body. It helps me really capture the emotion and what I'm attempting to convey or what I'm attempting to communicate with someone. Um, for most of my life, my emotional capacity and my emotions were very much suppressed and then exploded in this big argument or sensitivity or arrangement where I'm mad at myself, I'm upset with myself, I'm feeling terrible. And you can feel that in your body too, where you're holding up into yourself, and then there's this big
Mm,
explosion of emotion. And the way I look at my life is that I was a very sensitive person that feels the entire spectrum of emotion and continues to feel even more emotions and very much can hold two emotions at once or more. Um, and I wasn't allowed to express that. It was, oh, that doesn't hurt that bad. Oh, it's really not that bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that breeded me to hole into myself and think that my expression and my experience wasn't real, wasn't right, wasn't allowed, essentially. Therefore, by unleashing my emotions and coming into contact with myself through yoga, mindfulness, the chakra system, and then eventually further in the journey, bhakti practice with John,
mhm,
activating the voice portion of it, communication portion of it, helped me become my truest self, which was a person who had recovered from what would be a lifelong mental illness of bipolar 2 specifically. And I am now holistically based. I have a stable mood, proper responses to to the environment and the world I'm in.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, just living actually my purpose, my reason for being here, which came from that seed of depression and anxiety and bipolar because I found myself, and that was that dharma point, that piece of purpose, that reason for being here. Um, and
Well,
I'd say
if I
I'm
can stop you for a second, Julia, I know that you came to that. It seems that you came to that rather early in your life. I know I identify a lot with what you were saying about, like, holding those emotions in and then suddenly blowing it out. And I know for me, the way that I dealt with that was the poor coping mechanisms of moving into alcohol and substance abuse. So it wasn't until I came into recovery that I began to move along a path. And it's funny that, I was in that bhakti course with you. I was in a much later path. And just recently, my psychiatrist and I are starting to explore bipolar. And I'm like, now, whereas if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you came to that in a much earlier part of your life. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So I was officially diagnosed with bipolar at 21. I believe that they were talking about it at 18 or 19, but medication didn't reflect that. And that was because I hadn't had a manic episode at that point.
Mm, right, right.
And then I do it all to the extremes. I had a manic depressive episode that lasted almost 9 months total. And that was when I came to the awareness by reading a book that was describing bipolar and her experience with bipolar that made me realize I was right now in a manic episode, and then went down the path of finding recovery. I did use substance. I used marijuana as a substance for my coping mechanism during high school and college very, very intensely.
Hmm.
Um, And it essentially, that manic episode was also what brought me into this true discovery of myself through my emotional expression and allowance. And I found yoga and mindfulness during that time. Um,
Okay.
the way I describe it is that my crown chakra just blew open, and it was like all of the signs, all of the messages from the universe, which I do believe are true, but there's also a grounded sense that was not a part of my experience or self at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, that was the imbalance in a mental illness, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. So, it's like saying like you found another path in your recovery journey, which is awesome. It's like not everybody has the same path, which is, my whole purpose in saying forward in recovery. It's like there's not only one path.
Mhm.
So tell us more. Tell us more about your journey.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I wanted to say on that piece where I got it earlier, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
or I found it earlier, was that was a blessing. It's just happens to be that it was so extreme. And I had a wonderful support system through my family. I was very blessed with that, where they were
Mm-hmm.
like, you need help. And then it was me that came to them and was like, okay, yes. And I had this very determined attitude where it was, I'm going to get better. I'm going to fix this. Um, and that is what led me to this ability to be more holistic in my approach now. I was on all the medicines in high school and through my recovery from bipolar. And then eventually I was learning the capacity to hold and be with my emotions and how to handle those emotions with a coping skill or event or journaling. I journaled a lot, doing art. Um, yeah, I started drawing a lot then too, just to find new roots to hold my emotions and like be with myself. And by doing that, I was able to start to come off the medicines because that was my personal choice and feeling that was right in my body, meaning my body was leading me to one, have very bad reactions to the medicines at a certain point in time. And two, I just felt within myself that I wanted to be a more herbalist type of a um, person in mental health, using
Mm-hmm.
herbs as a mental health help. Um, but I didn't do that right away. I let myself learn to handle my emotions and create new habits around my emotions, such as practicing yoga, practicing meditation, learning about the chakra system, which is this energetic system within your body that relates to psycho-emotional states of being as well as physical states of being. And by learning about those and integrating where I might have had a block, like meaning I didn't have a lot of confidence at that time. Um, and my solar plexus, which is the energy center that connects to your confidence and your willpower and your self
Mm-hmm.
determination, was physically and energetically blocked, meaning I also could never do uh, a pull up. I could never do that. That was just not possible for me. And that is literally your abdomen where the solar plexus lies. So by doing crunches, I was actually helping my confidence too, because I'm focusing on the solar plexus area of my body and strengthening it, as well as doing the work of, yes, I'm going to slowly speak my mind, or I'm going to stand firm in a boundary right here. And notice how that makes me feel. Notice when I can't do it and notice when I can do it. What are the differences between those scenarios? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times our physical body is able to propel us to get from that can't to the can in a slow and steady manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's, when I after I went through my divorce and I was doing searching, and my sister said, I think you should really go study Reiki. And I did Reiki level 1 and 2. And that's when everybody was studying Reiki. And so I went a little further and studied the bowls. Um, and I started doing the one-on-one massages with the bowls, and we were working the same points that acupuncturists work with the Himalayan bowls. Then I studied integrated energy therapy, and there I started making the connection to all the chakras, similar to what you're describing, and it wasn't until I got into the coaching, which I came to during the pandemic, and I started to combine the two.
Mhm.
And similar to, I think, what you're describing is like I do these affirmations for my clients where I will literally record doing chakra affirmations to align them,
Mhm.
and record where each client might be either weak or it might be misaligned, and where they're working on in that area, and do a recorded affirmation for them. And I remember doing a couple of sessions with you, and your work was amazing in that, and all long distance. All our work was over the phone, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like bringing this stuff together and integrating is so awesome.
Mhm.
um, I think the key in what I heard you say, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say in there was that like you were able to face yourself. And when you were able to face yourself, that's when you were like, I don't need these medications. I need something that's different, or I can find a different way. And I think that's key in recovery in our journey, is when we're able to, we go to those substances because we don't want to face ourselves. Is that how you felt?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're looking for validation elsewhere. I was
Mm-hmm.
looking for marijuana to make me feel happy or just help me bring to a normal baseline. That's literally how I used to describe it too. I remember being like, I was just so low. I was so down here. Marijuana just made me feel like a normal person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love the chakra system because it is facing yourself entirely, meaning you have the ability to influence your energy centers, get to know your energy centers, what one is um, more drawn out, like a really big heart, for example, but maybe you're not able to say no to someone.
Yeah. Yes.
And then that energy, it's not meant to leave your body. It's meant to just go down into the solar plexus, for example, where you can be like, no, this is a no for me. And then it goes up to your throat chakra and it's like, I'm saying this no. And the
Mm-hmm.
energy is still there. It's the same energy that is yours, but now it's balanced throughout your body a little better. And that influences your outer world. So when we
Mm-hmm.
turn to face ourselves, we can influence what's around us rather than being influenced by.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think people think this stuff sounds silly. I can vouch for the fact that, like, when I was younger, I would get throat illnesses all the time, constantly getting laryngitis. And I was a performer. I was a performing musician, and I was a singer. And I'd be constantly getting laryngitis, constantly getting sore throats. I also had this inability to speak up for myself. So I was
Mhm,
constantly holding my words back, or I
mhm,
would, like you were saying, explode.
mhm,
Hold it back till it exploded. When I did my chakra work, and not even just chakra work, but when I did my boundary work, and I worked with therapists and learned how to communicate and speak up for myself, it was amazing how when this opened up, I suddenly stopped getting sick. I stopped getting laryngitis. I stopped getting throat infections. And then one day I just went, huh. you know? And that's when I started to take that work seriously. It's like, people kind of poo-poo it, and people say, oh, alternative medicine, but when you think about it, Western medicine is always treating the symptoms.
mhm,
And I now I'm going through some back stuff, and in IET I have these two like muscles that are like knots. And in integrated energy therapy, it's like back muscle says I'm stuck,
mhm.
I'm not moving forward. So now it's like, okay, I can just, instead of just going, oh, my back hurts, what do I need to do in terms of Western medicine, I can also bring in that other thing of saying, all right, what do I need to look at?
Yes,
What, bring
exactly.
it to my feelings? What's going on that I'm not recognizing as a feeling?
Mhm.
Which is something that we do. We don't always connect to that.
Yep. I will. Before I started my business, I was always looking at, and I still do this, but I'll look up spiritual meaning of right shoulder pain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I am not going to, lay off that shoulder or do what a physical therapist says or this or that, but it's also just making me aware of the emotional connection that's there. And is this true for me? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times just identifying that will help it release it. And
Yes.
that's the practice of mindfulness.
Yes, and a lot of times, I know my friend is really going through it. A lot of times, it's grief work when you're holding grief in your body in a place. Something that my therapist said to me. She said, "So much stuff has happened in your life, and you've never grieved it." And I said, "What are you talking about? I've certainly grieved stuff." And she said, "No, you haven't." And we spent like all last year going through stuff that I thought I grieved.
Yeah.
Oh no, I did not.
Yeah.
And I remember I was speaking at NUMC at the rehab, and somebody said, "Wait, you're like 35 years sober, and you're still go to a therapist?" And I went, "Well, yeah, that's part of my self care.
Mhm.
I go to family constellations. I go to this. I go to that. So I need to ask you a little bit about like what's part of your self care for you." Because I
Mm.
know you're a coach and you're like constantly working with other people and doing their stuff. So, what do you do for your self care?
Mm. So lately it has been getting back to a yoga practice. Um, that sort of left my life for a little bit of time. I wasn't feeling as excited about it. But it's coming back to that, and I'm feeling the excitement about it. I'm feeling excited teaching. I'm teaching the best classes I've ever taught before as well. And that's by
Mm-hmm.
taking other teachers' classes, you know, letting that network grow so that you can nourish yourself. And it's also going on walks. So I'm actually very focused on my physical body right now. It's really been needed. I've done a lot of work on my emotional body. I've worked with a lot of coaches over the last 5 years. And now it's like, okay, great. Emotions feeling good, confidence feeling good. But my physical body has kind of taken the wayside. So I'm focusing on moving my body in a way that's not overdoing it because I used to be an athlete and sometimes I still think I am, and just coming back into it slowly and surely, and making space for that, which is so helpful for my emotional self and my stress levels as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Same thing. My brain still tells me I'm 35,
Yeah.
and my body says, "No, you're not."
Yeah. It's wild. And
So,
that's a grief process, right? Like,
right, right. Yeah, that's another thing. Lots, right? Um, so, and I guess that's kind of like when you talk about like pairing mindfulness with energy. You had mentioned that when we were talking earlier. What do you mean by that? Pairing mindfulness with energy?
Hmm, okay. So the way I define mindfulness is being, well, of course, it's being present in the moment and being aware of what's happening in the moment. So when we are practicing a Vipassana, which is mindfulness meditation, meaning you're literally sitting or doing a mindfulness meditation walk. You're noticing the feeling of the breath in your body. You're noticing the thoughts that are running through your mind and the feeling that is associated with those thoughts. So we're getting closer to what does an emotion feel like in my body? Oh, okay. That can really inform me that this is what anxiety feels like to me. And it's going to be unique to you. This is what grief feels like to me. This is what joy feels like to me. And when we practice that, then we can take it actually into our lives, meaning, oh my gosh, I am really excited right now. And this is what I do when I'm really excited. I have this behavior. I'm impulsive. I want to talk to this person, that person, that person. There are behaviors that are also associated with your emotion, and it's connected to that energy that is excited, that's happy, that's joyful, whatever it might be. And by noticing that and then practicing mindfulness to kind of ground yourself, like maybe you don't want to do all that online shopping right now, even though you're excited and you just got a paycheck, then
Yes.
You come back, you're like, I'll just let it sit in the cart for a while I practice my mindfulness, I do something else. Am I still really excited about this? Do I still really want this? That's using mindfulness to connect and notice your behavioral patterns
Hmm.
with your energy, your emotional patterns.
Okay, so kind of like putting a stay or a pause on the impulsivity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah. I
And
noticed that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and also connecting that, oh, this is what I do when I'm like this. Oh, okay. So that's an easy, like the awareness is a huge portion of it because once we're aware of it, then we can either release it or do something about it or just watch it, let it be there.
Hmm.
And that's what I
Hmm.
was saying about the shoulder pain too, is just by acknowledging this emotional response or this emotion is connected to that, then it's kind of like an ability to witness so that then you can release. We can't release until we witness.
Right, right. It's interesting to see the verbiage that you use, and I use different verbiage, and we're essentially saying the same thing, and it's
Huh.
just we're approaching it with different languages, which is awesome because sometimes clients need different language to approach the same thing because they don't necessarily hear things the same way, which
Mhm.
leads to the next question I was going to ask you. So very often a lot of the clients that come to me are often I deal with a lot of adult child work, and so very often, whether it be because of the rigid family systems they come from, either because of substance abuse or cultural, the cultural sensitivities where they come from, they're not in touch with being able to name their feelings.
Mm.
So if you ask them how they feel, they don't have a name for it, or
Mhm.
they'll use the like word. I feel like I wanna, and it's like that's not a feeling. So you were just saying a whole bunch of things of like feeling this or feeling that. It's like, how do you approach someone who comes to you and they're not in touch with those feelings?
Yeah. I use the feeling wheel a lot. So I bring that into almost all of my group programs as well as my individual work, where there's this huge wheel of emotions and an array of emotions. And seeing all of these emotions, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's what it is. That's typically how I will do that. Um, a lot of times, also, I'm just letting someone start to try to express rather than um, needing it to be identified. It's like the step for them of coming closer to the identification where it's the process of uncovering it. Like, I don't have the words for this yet, but I'm going to describe what it feels like. And I mean literally too, meaning, oh, I feel tingling in my fingertips. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like my heart's racing. I feel this pang in my stomach right here.
So a little
Those-
bit of somatic work.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I do the same. I'll be like, where do you feel it in your body? You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's so important because people who are in here are not here. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. That is
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
So tell us what's going on with you more recently, because I know there's some new things happening in your career.
Yeah. So recently I've accepted a position as a program director for a teen program in my community that is for high schoolers that are going through a tough time. So they may have been suspended for substance use or they're seeking psycho-emotional support, um, having trouble getting to class, having some challenges within their family system potentially, um, as having trouble regulating their emotions. And I am managing the team here, which is a mental health clinician, a academic support advisor, and then myself and an intern, social work intern, and we're teaching them coping skills and wellness techniques. So we are talking to these teens like they are people. We are not no subject, I mean, within the bounds of sensitivities and whatnot, is off the table. We want to hear their experience. Why do they want to do this? Why do they not want to do that? What is the resistance to not smoking or not bringing a vape to school, for example? We talk and get to know them as individuals and what's going on in their lives. And we're teaching them communication skills, goal setting, identifying strengths is normally where we start. And moving through the curriculum, this curriculum that we've created to help create positive alternatives for the students. The
Mm-hmm.
program is called PASS, Positive Alternative for Student Support. So we're offering these new alternatives, new ways to look at life and new ways to handle and cope with life, because all of life is in front of them and they do have a choice. And it's really just like we were talking, it's just up to them. You can have a support system that wants you to go to this program, but only if they choose to come to this program will they really have impact in the program and within themselves.
That's so awesome. So it's kind of like a self-responsibility on their part,
Mhm.
which is really what you and I would call empowerment.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that. I love that. And how are you finding it there?
Oh, I love it. I have I've had my business for almost 4 years now, but I've never felt that it's meant to be my entire income. I've always sort of been enjoying the collaboration of other people because I'm a solopreneur. I'm currently just working by myself with my coaching programs and individual sessions, teaching yoga, sound healing, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the collaborative environment. I like working with people that are on the same page for a cause and actually getting out of the house and going to a place to work. It feels really good for me too. So I've never been happier within a job. And I also want to point out how this job came to me. I have been within this self-healing journey for quite a while. And, I've tried on different things. I'm like, yes, definitely teaching yoga. Yes, definitely coaching. But I know there's more. I know there's more. And I continued to try on different things. My background is in electrical engineering. I have a degree in that. So I've taken on engineering roles. I've done consulting in engineering, all of these. I've done acoustic engineering, different stuff. And I've dabbled within those things, but so far jobs have never felt right for me, and I've chosen to break away from them and support myself and go after my business. And over the last year, I've really come into this cohesion within myself where I've gotten to know myself so well that I know how to respond to situations and how to um, accept or manifest something. And I'm not talking about like manifestation in that typical like new age spirituality way. I'm talking about really aligned manifestation, meaning the timeline is infinite. And if you're focusing on yourself, meaning chakra alignment, work within yourself, showing up in situations that might be challenging, doing your grief work, all of those things, that's aligning your energy to the right opportunities for you. And I experienced that through this job. It was so divine. I was teaching a full moon ceremony and a yoga class, and I connected with the person that we were donating the funds to, who I've been friends with for a long time on Facebook. She's also a yoga teacher. And we were connecting over our stories, what I'm doing now. Um, Obviously, this this community here really hits home for me because I was a teen on Cape Cod that was struggling from mental health and using substance and unable to regulate and continued down that path. And so that is exactly the candidates that we're looking at here that I'm working with here. So we were connecting and she was like, I have a position for you if you're into it. We're looking to expand this program and I need a new program director. I'd like the current one to become the supervisor. And she's also a yoga teacher at the studio that we both teach at. And I took my time. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, interesting. Something inside me pinged. I was really excited. And I also know that I get excited and overcommit. So I've learned to not overcommit and instead sit with the decision. So she gave me the space to sit with that decision, and we both felt an alignment. And after a certain amount of time, when some of my consulting contracts were coming to an end, I decided that yes, this was the right position for me, and I went for it. And I have been here for about 4 months now, and I am literally so happy. I've never been so happy in a job. It
That's
gives me
awesome.
space to teach still and be a coach and a healer and show up for these kids and teach and refine my wellness facilitation and coping skills. So
That's great, Julia. You had to know I was going to bring that up. And it was on the tip of my tongue to say, there was this project you were working on about lobster traps that you were so passionate and committed to. And I think that's, one of the things I see about, again, forward in recovery, journey in recovery, the same thing. It's like, I thought the only thing that I could do was be a professional musician. And then I went out on tour and I realized that it was wonderful, but it wasn't for me. And what I really loved was creating, and creating came about by being a teacher. And I had a private business. I was very successful, and I became kind of like, meh, and my divorce forced me to make a change that I wasn't necessarily happy about and start over. And I kind of completely reinvented myself, and took a path that I never thought I would take. And that's how I came to meet you, because it's like, here I am taking courses in bhakti yoga, and now I can sit here and say things like, when you were talking about the past kids and self-empowerment, and I'm like, yes, when we talk about Ganesh, the god that's the reliever of difficulties, but he's not going to relieve you of difficulties if you don't get up off your butt and do something yourself, because and they actually say that in their writings. And it's all of a sudden, all of that stuff is in my head. And some of my friends think I've gone off my rocker with all that stuff that I'm into, with the Hindu stuff and chanting and this and that, because that's not who I was 10, 15 years ago. But it's like, I'm on this whole new path. And during the pandemic, I just dropped everything and said, you know what? My friend suggested this and said, become a recovery coach. And I just combined that with all the other things I was doing, being a self-empowerment coach, being a voice teacher, doing the sound bowls and everything. And now I'm heading off doing end of life stuff with the sound bowls and coaching and combining. And it never stops, right? And that's why we just keep moving forward. And I'm just so happy for you finding this thing. And so it leads me to my final question for you. If you think about your path in recovery, starting out with this, I mean, you were really committed to this thing because you had such a passion about the oceanography and the wildlife in the ocean, and this, the lobster traps that the lines wouldn't harm fish, and doing all sorts of electronic stuff. And it was just like, oh my God, she's such a brainiac. And at the same time, you have all this holistic stuff going. It's just amazed me. If you think about going from there to your yoga and all that stuff, and how you just came up to this, now you're doing this thing with Pass. If you had to find a thread in your journey, what would that thread be?
Such a good question. The thread is community.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. I was in the ocean acoustic engineering space and working with electronics. And I left the job because this big corporate job where the people I went to collaborate with were clients of ours, and they were my community. And the ocean was my community. I noticed that by the time I was 27, I had always worked with the ocean in some capacity. I was a lifeguard, then I was this ocean acoustic person. And then I found this community, and I continue to consult with them. I'm still doing some consulting work with that sphere of technology.
And you were an athletic swimmer, weren't you?
And I was an athletic swimmer. Yes, yeah. The water. It's the water.
The water. Yeah.
Water. And now the thread of community being my yoga studio, and that had been ongoing too. You know, I had been doing that. I was teaching yoga 2 to 3 classes a week while I was working that corporate job. And I was miserable at the corporate job, but I loved the work we did in a sense. But I didn't like that I couldn't teach this one class every summer or whatever it might be. And it was burning me out, and the corporate structure burnt me out with my mental health and the way I'm wired to have and need space burnt me out. So I continued with that community while my other community was also growing. And now I'm serving a community that I was a part of and really relate to. So the thread is community.
It's awesome. And who knows what the next step in the journey will be, right? So you're still taking on clients, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, to work with you, how would they do that?
Best spot is Instagram, Julia Rugosa, JuliaRugosa. And my website is the same, juliarugosa.com. Again, that's JuliaRugosa.com. And I have I have individual sessions as well as longer packages and a few group programs that are normally running throughout the year. One is Radiant Self, and Radiant Self encapsulates everything I was just talking about, my recovery journey through the chakra system and mindfulness within a small intimate group coaching setting that's available to, it's an online class, so available to wherever you might be in the world.
Okay, so Julie, if you put that information up in a story, I'll share your story to my Instagram, which is John P. Farrell _recovery coach. And then I'll put a post up on that so you can all grab that from there. As I said, this podcast will be on my YouTube channel, video portion of it, and the audio portion will go up. This is probably going to go up in about 2 weeks because I have one more podcast coming up before this one goes. Any other final thoughts before we go?
No, I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for this community that we've created. And anyone who's here, thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time. And let us know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you for my very first video podcast. I'm so excited. Yay.
Thank you.
And, it was great. I got to learn a few things about you I didn't know. And I'm so happy for your new program, and I wish you much success with that. And it's just so great to see people when they're like moving forward in their journey, and not every part of it, I know it's happened with me, not every part of it is pleasant. But when I look back, I know they say keep the rearview mirror small, but when I look back, I see like, all right, this was necessary because I needed to pick up this skill, I needed to pick up this knowledge, and I'm using it today. And there's not one thing I haven't experienced in 35 years that I'm not using in my coaching today. So again, thank you so much for being with me today. And I look forward to seeing you on the in-person side. Maybe this summer I'll come up and take a visit. And thank you everybody for attending today, and I'll see you soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.